movie notes on Radium Girls, 2018 film, 8 January 2025 viewing. Today is Wednesday, 8 January 2025. I am Tanis Leonhardi, she, her, hers of Seattle. For this viewing, I decided to refocus my description of the movie and kind of contextualize it for my prize / award coverage. I have a playlist on that, which I should link in the video description. Actually, should I? Yes, because that was a special focus for this viewing. So I have done, I have covered this movie before. So my description for this viewing with kind of a prize / award contextualization approaches. It was a biographical film about the unintended consequences of using the chemical element radium in timepiece production in the 1920s in the United States of America. This followed the discovery of radium by Marie Curie, she, her, hers of Poland and France, for which she won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry, 1 out of 100% of the prize in the year 1911. So I like that. This is from Fred Meyer, a local grocery chain. I'm in the Seattle area, greater Seattle area, Washington State, United States of America, Planet Earth, the original. I've got a fried chicken breast. Here it is, the beauty. So I'm going to eat this. Art is part of it. And talk through this a little bit. So here we go. The prize came for work that she had already done, and that was awarded in 1911. And so essentially there's this hunt for all of these different chemical elements, and she discovered radium and polonium, which is what she won the Nobel Prize for. And radium was like, oh, it's kind of cool, it glows, you know, like even today people love pictures of, you know, lights glowing at nighttime in like a city environment. And so, you know, one of the ways they knew some of these things were radioactive was they had a color and they glowed. And something used in, so I'm geology and geophysics and mathematics. And in geology, something we might use to assess whether a mineral or a material like might be radioactive is like fluorescence. Like, what color does it fluoresce? Does it fluoresce? Like, does it glow a certain color under a certain light, essentially? And so this movie does a good job of showing the glow of the element itself. I think the turnaround here is actually pretty good. I'd say applause to industry for catching it this early. So if you think of, or not you, but like thinking of the chronology for this, the chemical element is discovered, and the utility of the element and that kind of understanding in a business setting is not far delayed. Like nowadays, I've attended conferences and they'll be like, it takes like a good 50-60 years for technology to kind of come into being kind of where people want it to be. And she won the prize for this in 1911, and this was in the 1920s. They were not only using it in industry, but they were like, oh, here are the problems. So it's kind of an interesting thing, actually, in terms of like the legacy of the Nobel Prize, the legacy of Marie Curie's work, kind of documenting how science and business, the interconnectedness of science and business, nowadays might be a bit slow, like, you know, 40 years slower than in the past. Which is kind of interesting. In my experience, as someone with experience in science / mathematics, at least in research and schoolwork and stuff, we tend to get put down by the engineering community. And so that might be part of it. right? There's a bit of the scientists come up with the ideas, but then because they're abused verbally, if nothing else, more than they have been in the past, the communication lag might be greater. And so technological advances are quite slower than they have been, even relative to the early 1900s. Which can be a good or a bad thing. Think if a problem develops, it's very good chicken. Lots of meat, lots of skin, lots of breading. It's a good one for thinking through how long would be an ideal like integration, because that scientific breakthrough might be great, but if people are out there dying and getting sick, or getting sick and dying from that new scientific breakthrough, then maybe it's okay if it moves a little slower. But from my perspective, that doesn't necessarily justify the mistreatment of scientists, mathematicians. So there's one thing. And then another interesting thing about this one is because radioactivity itself was relatively new in terms of like understanding it. Marie Curie also won a Nobel Prize in physics in 1903. Because it wasn't well known, these women in the factory making these timepieces, right, they were on the cutting edge breakthrough of the understanding of like the physiological effects of radiation exposure and radiation damage. So it's an interesting one in that sense of scientific breakthrough in physics and chemistry also led to breakthrough in physiology. And nowadays, some people might be more familiar with radiation for like MRIs or CAT scans or chemotherapy. But that comes from some pain and suffering on people early on. And nowadays, the medical industry can really glamorize itself without giving kind of due credit and attention to the people who suffered at the beginning. So, for this movie notes video, it's really a bit of a contextualization. And I'm kind of trying to describe it to my future self when I review this video. So there we go. I'm gonna stop eating now. Chicken is really good. Still got a little bit left, but mighty tasty. So, thank you for joining me. And this is my movie notes on Radium Girls 2018 film, 8 January 2025 viewing.